Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Great. We've established quorum. The next item on tonight's agenda is the report of action taken in closed session. Trustee Brown.
At tonight's closed session, the board voted to approve the appointment of the following public employee contracts, which are subject to contractual agreement by the chancellor. Salaries are for informational purposes only and are not voted on by the board. Recommendation to approve the appointment of Drew Gephardt as acting director of international services and student support effective August 21st, 2014 through September 22nd, 2014 at $113,300 annually prorated. 7 yes. Mr. President, that concludes the closed session readout for tonight.
Fantastic. And I think we have some changes to tonight's agenda. If you would read those changes out, and then we're going to ask for approval of the agenda.
And I should also add that if Mr. Gephardt is present, if you could please stand so we could welcome you to your position you've been in. And we have some changes to the agenda. Under agenda item 12, out-of-state travel, Carlos McLean should read Carlos McLean. There is Carlos McLeon. McLeon should read Carlos McLean. And under agenda item 26, it should read informational and not approval.
Thank you. Without objection, we are going to take those amendments to the agenda. Any other changes to the agenda this evening? Trustee Carl. Thank you. Item number 9 has been pulled from the consent calendar. Item number 9 is consider approval of the board meeting calendar for 2015. Without objection, so ordered. Any other changes to the agenda? Trustee Gonzalez-Yun.
Yes, I'd like to pull for discussion item 27 dealing with the project labor agreement.
Okay, item number 27 has been pulled, and I should note that item number 27 is a side letter to the approved project labor agreement between the district and Alameda County Building and Construction Trade Council and related signatory unions. That item is on the agenda as a first reading, and will come back at the next meeting as well. But we'll go ahead and pull that for discussion at tonight's meeting.
I have a discussion item.
Trustee Handy.
Item number 16, consider approval to increase the amount of an independent consulting contract for Moodle online support for the district.
Item number 16 has been pulled from the consent calendar. It's consider approval to increase the amount of an ICC for Timothy Gibbon from $20,000 to $55,000 for Moodle online support for the district. Without objection, we'll go ahead and pull that. Any other changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Move on to, without objection, we've approved the agenda with those stated changes. The next item is approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting on October 7th, 2014? There's a motion by Trustee Brown, seconded by Trustee Galassa. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. The next item is public communication. Trustee Brown, do we have members of the public that would like to address the board?
We have 2 speaker cards, one from James Blake and the other from Mr. Kai Williams, or is that Lynn Williams, who's surrendering time to James Blake.
So let's have the clock for 6 minutes, please. If you could just turn on the mic, Mr. Blake. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, district administration, college presidents. The reason why I'm addressing you this evening is to bring in light a report that came out in January 2013 called the Student Report Redefined by the RP Group. One of the things that it brought up to light is that as it interviewed students and what students' perspectives were in terms of the challenges facing in terms of education, it brought to light 6 factors. One is that students needed to be directed, have a goal, and know how to achieve it. They needed to be focused, stay on track, keeping their eyes on the prize. Nurtured, students feeling that somebody wants to and helps them to succeed. Engage, students feel that they are part of the college community. Students actively participating in class and extracurricular activity, and connected, students feel that they are part of the college community. Valued, student skills, talents, abilities, and experiences are recognized, and they have opportunities to contribute on campus and feel their contributions are appreciated. In line with our mission and values and our accreditation standards, we are challenged with integrating these concerns that have been identified by this report, and that we should be determining in our decision-making process how it's impacting our students and whether or not we are aligning ourselves with the needs of our students. And oftentimes we are challenged and we sort of miss the objective. And we oftentimes don't pay attention to the feedback we get from our student leaders and their engagement, and so it becomes a challenge for them. So even though we have these things embodied in our mission statements and our value statements and accreditation, do we manifest those attributes in our behavior? Do we address those issues as students' needs are identified by themselves and also which we know historically? Do we engage students in shared governance in the planning process and the assessment? Students have been asking for our support. Have we answered the call? And this is something we need to reflect on our decision-making processes in terms of how it impacts the student. In my capacity, in my job, I actually work with a lot of faculty. And it troubles me when a faculty member comes to me and tells me that 8 weeks into the program, they're not able to provide necessary tools and equipment to assist students in learning because their budget hasn't been loaded. And I said, well, do you know what the issue is? He says, I really don't care what the issue is. Everybody should be fired. There is some truth in that statement. Sometimes in our practices and in the results, we miss the mark when it comes to putting students first. And so we have to start really aligning our budgets and things of that nature so that they're activated when they're needed. That's a challenge that we have to face. And we have to solve, because it's very frustrating when you're trying to support all facets of the stakeholders that are involved in educating our students, and they feel that their hands are tied behind their back, and they can't do their best. And I've seen this daily, on a daily basis, when I interact with faculty. And it's something that, as this board and as the leadership at this college district, we need to do something about that. We need to make students understand that we are going to be true to our mission and value statements. Trust me when I tell you, if we don't measure up to who we say we are, they know we are lying. And it impacts how they view us, it impacts their retention, and especially when it comes to achievement gaps. People will disengage if they feel that we're just like the rest of society, that we're selling them cheap, we're selling them short, and we're not supporting them. They want compassion in our commitment to help them reach their objectives, and they want some sincerity about what we say and do in their behalf. And that's a challenge I think we need to all tackle to some degree if we're going to change the culture of education. There's many changes happening externally: pension reform, SSSP, cost-based allocation of funds, action-based allocation of funds, SSSP and things and how that manifests. People are tightening the strings and tying tying money to action. And we need to get on board so we can better serve students and be honest about what it is we are really doing on their behalf, because they know the difference. And I appreciate, some of the leadership of the trustees in terms of keeping the focus on students, why we're here. But we need to do more than just talk about it. We need to demonstrate it. And I bring that challenge not only to this body, but all staff in Peralta, because they know the difference. They know if we're faking it, and they know if we're for real. And I'm in this fight for their behalf. And I fight this fight realizing that there's always consequences, but I really don't care about those, because their success is bigger than me. And I'm willing to risk self on their behalf, because they're important to me, and they're important to the future of not only this area, but this country, this nation. And we need to start telling the truth about things and put our focus on and our energies on serving them well. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. And I hope you all reflect on these issues and these concerns, because we need to fix them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Blake. Any other speakers?
That's it?
Okay, seeing no other speakers from communications from members of the public, we have the next item is Associated Student Government Reports. Do we have students here from our Associated Student Governments? If you please come forward and identify yourselves. We're ready for your report. Thank you.
Good evening, administrators, board members, and members of the public. My name is Saba Conchali. I'm from College of Alameda, representing the student government. I am the Interclub Council representative. Representing our reports for the past couple weeks that we have had. We had our clubs, recharting our clubs. We have so far 22 clubs on campus that are actually active and been getting engaged in events. In our student center for our pit area, we are already installing TVs, 80-inch with speakers. And along with that, we're having new furniture to reconstruct everything in the building. Also, our events that we have had in the past, we had celebrated the Latino Heritage Month, where we had Aztec dancing, film screenings such as the walkout, and other activities that we did to celebrate this month. Also, other events that we had was spoken word event, where all the students got together and was able to share their talents, such as singing, poetry, etc., where we had free food and all that for all of us to get together and express ourselves. We also had Voters of Registration Challenge. We had Muslim Student Association event. And we also had Muscat Day Prep Rally, where we are encouraging our volleyball team. Also, we had Friday Success Club, Bone Arrow, Merrill Drive, and upcoming events that we are having so far. For October the 29th, we are having our first art show in College of Alameda, where we're encouraging our student artists to be inspired to show their art, and also other students out there to all of us get together and have like a little show for them, like a gallery, for them to show their work and give like rewards based on their work that they have showed. Also on the 30th, we're having Dia Los Muertos in the Quad, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing it right, where we're celebrating the Day of the Dead. We're also having on the 5th of November, we're having the prep rally for men's basketball team, where we're encouraging our basketball team players in College of Alameda. And on the 19th of November, we're having the International Student Club and panel event in the Quad. Last but not least, on the 25th of November, we're having the family dinner in the pit. Some of us here, students in college in general, may not have that time to spend with family, or we're too carried away with school, work, and other life, challenges that we face, and we don't have that time to spend again with our family. So we thought to have this dinner to get everyone together and have that time to bond and so we can get to know each other. And that concludes my report. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jose Aguilera, and I am the treasurer for the Associated Students of Berkeley City College. I would like to thank you all for extending this opportunity for me to speak here today. The past month has been a busy yet a successful one for the ASBCC, thanks to the support of our college staff, administration, and the Peralta District faculty. Berkeley City College celebrated their 40th anniversary this past week. Festivities included food and live music for students, as well as the unveiling of a mural in the atrium and public speakers. Digital Media Arts hosted a presentation in conjunction to the event. Our ASBCC members were present during the event, and our ambassadors helped during the event in the evening. The BCC Voice had their first issue this past week. The BCC Voice is a monthly college newsletter written by the BCC students in a journalism class held by Professor Holly Hardy. The Latin American Club held Hispanic Heritage Month, celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month by hosting a series of cultural events which included public speakers, live music performances, and activities that engage and educated students on different Latin American cultures. The Muslim Student Association held Eid. I apologize if I missed the pronunciation. It's a celebration of a religious holiday, and it promoted student engagement by marketing their club and by providing pizza and music for the students to enjoy. The Global Studies Club hosted The Cost of Injustice. They hosted speaker Cephas Johnson. He spoke on issues of police brutality and his experiences relating to other families around the country who have lost their children to police violence. The BCC Service Community hosted their personal statement workshop today, and they had a speaker and a representative from UC Berkeley. Coming up, this next week, ASBCC is holding a Halloween event. The celebration will host festivities on campus and allow clubs an opportunity to market themselves to students. The ASBCC will be helping the clubs by providing music and candy. 4 students were appointed to attend and represent BCC at the Student Senate for California Community College this coming month. The SSCCC represents the 2.4 million students in the California Community College system and state-level shared governance and legislative advocacy. The Muslim Student Association will be hosting an event called Islamophobia. They will host a speaker, Sahara Billo, and he will be speaking on the religion of Islam and the common misconceptions associated with it. The goal is to educate the students and prevent prejudice. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Jackson. I'm a senator representing Merritt College. Good evening, Chancellor, Board of Trustees, presidents, faculty, and administrators. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share what ASMC is doing at our campus. Last week, ASMC sponsored a Student Appreciation Day, whereby we fed over 400 students. Today, ASMC sponsored, with Office of the President, in honor to celebrate 48th anniversary of the Black Panther movement. So we had a speaker today, and it was a success. There was only standing room. Okay. In the next 2 weeks, the following events are scheduled. ASMC and the Criminal Justice Department will be collaborating in bringing the Noble organization to bring awareness of citizens' rights. ASMC also will have their official swear-in on Friday, October 31st, 2014 at 1 to 3. ASMC is also working collaboratively with the Office of Student Activities and Campus Life to increase student involvement and build leadership. Thank you.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Angel Avila. I'm here as a publicity commissioner on behalf of the ASLC Student Government. I'm here to give the reports as well. First off, Team Laney. Team Laney is inaugurating their activeness to the extent of becoming leaders within shared governance. Yesterday, on October 20th, 2014, we, the ASLC, were successful in publishing our first newsletter, which emphasizes on the informal awareness within our campus and issues from outside in our communities that affect us as students. Which, by the way, the newsletter is identified as the Eagle's Voice newsletter. With that said, I would like to thank the collaboration of our Team Laney's photographers, journalists, graphic artists, media communications, and our marketing team. We, the ASLC, would also like to thank Dr. Webb for supporting Team Laney as well. On the other hand, one of our active clubs, known as BASTA, Brown Alliance of Students Taking Action, has been holding the Latino Heritage Month as well. Previously, on October 13th, which was on a Monday, they held an event, a panel based on mass detention and unaccompanied minors. It was a really successful event. There was such representation from El Centro Legal de la Raza, East Bay Community Law Center, and also RENACE, which is Red National Salvadoreña en el Exterior. Again, the panel emphasized on mass detention and unaccompanied minors. It really brought awareness of what's currently happening right now within the city of Oakland. There's a really high number of students within the Unified School District of unaccompanied minors who simply just seek to for better resources within their educational system and within having shelter as well provided for them, and also mental health issues as well. Yeah, pretty much. On the other hand, we also will be celebrating an event based on Thanksgiving, except we are identified it at Laney Giving Day. We still do not have an updated date for that yet, but it is promising as well. Our VP also will be holding a homecoming dance as well too. I do not have the update on that date as well either. Also, Club Rush, we're going to have our second Club Rush, which will take place on November 3rd and 4th. Also for Dia de los Muertos, which will also be held by BASTA, Brown Alliance of Students Taking Action, will take place on the 28th of this month. It's going to be like a 2-session event. First session is going to be like from 12 to 1 p.m. There's going to be Aztec danzantes. There's going to be face painting as well, food as well. There's going to be another session from 5 to 7 p.m., and that will take place at the Laney Tower within the Tower's Art Gallery. Again, Aztec dancing, face painting as well. Yeah, it's gonna be a really good event. Last but not least, there's still word that our funds are to be moved to the district, meaning our Wells Fargo bank account is being moved to a County of Alameda bank. We, the ASLC, would like to state we deserve to be respected for our input within this process being made. That's it. That is my report. Thank you very much. Oh, one more thing. I have copies of the newsletters as well, too. I'll just briefly pass them around.
Yeah, if you can give them to the clerk, please, that'd be great.
Very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the student reports this evening. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is Chancellor reports. Chancellor Ortiz.
Thank you very much, and good evening, trustees. Good evening, college presidents, district staff, faculty, staff, and the viewing audience. I want to report this evening that a couple of weeks ago, since our last board meeting, I had an opportunity to present with my colleague, Chancellor Helen Benjamin, at the National Black African American Affairs Council, the President's Roundtable, CEO presentation for aspiring CEOs in Burlingame, where we presented, I guess, guiding principles for a successful CEO, and particularly in the areas of human resources and finance. That opportunity gave me a chance to share my knowledge and hear from Helen Benjamin, of course, her wisdom on how to be a successful CEO. I also last week had an opportunity to participate with Berkeley City College 40th anniversary last Friday. It gave me an opportunity to bring my young bride, Carmen, to the event where she not only demonstrated that she can walk without crutches, but she also had this sassy haircut that Linda Handy pointed out. I better be careful where I walk with this young lady. So, and then finally, yesterday we had the public forums for the Deputy Chancellor position. We had 3 finalists present here. And for those of you who did not have an opportunity to be here, that video is available through our YouTube channel, or will be.
It's actually on Granicus, same place where you get these meetings.
Okay, so thank you for
And we'll be
straightening me out.
sending that around.
So it's on Granicus, and is it available already? All right, thank you very much. And that's the end of my report for this evening, but I do want to introduce the president of Berkeley City College, Dr. Debbie Budd, who has a special presentation for us. Dr. Budd.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. And thank you for mentioning our 40th anniversary. It was a wonderful event. And as part of that, we had a press conference last week where Mayor Bates joined us, and I want to thank Victor Flint for helping organize that. And also part of that, he reached out to many of our ambassador alumni and previous students. And we were thrilled that Tenzin Selden was able to join us for not only the press conference, but for our 40th anniversary celebration. We had several of our trustees that were present for the press conference, and at that time they asked that we absolutely honor her this evening at the board meeting because she's such an incredible individual. So if I may just read a couple of things about Tenzin, and then we'll have her come up for a picture, all right? Tenzin, we really want to honor you, and the Board of Trustees strives to honor those whose accomplishments have brought honor to the district and wishes to recognize you. Many of you may know. How about, as I read it, Chancellor, how about Tenzin comes up and you could hold this? Great. It was just mentioned that many of the trustees feel that they saw Tenzin grow up, and she absolutely did. She graduated from Berkeley City College with her Associate of Arts in 2009. Tenzin then went on to Stanford University, where she graduated in 2012, became a Rhodes Scholar, went to Oxford University, has just completed her master's, and is now going to work with the United Nations. So, thank you. Tenzin, you continue to make us so proud and set a wonderful example, and we really thank you for coming back and sharing with the students and help them realize what they can do also. So thank you. If you could say a few, you want to say a few words, Victor? Tenzin, would you say a few words? Yeah. Thank you.
Tenzin, in my opinion, represents the ultimate accomplishments in the U.S. school system. Over at Berkeley City College, our outreach program reaches to the high school students as well as the middle school students. And I tell all the students that You can go to school in Berkeley High, across the street, go to BC, and go 2 blocks up the street to Cal, get your undergrad, go back, get your grad, and get your PhD, and never be 15 blocks away from where you were born. It's a great town to work in.
Wow, I am quite speechless. I want to thank, first and foremost, President Budd, all of the college presidents, Victor Flint for making this happen and for realizing the dreams of many other people, for Chancellor Ortiz for always continuing to encourage and support each student, for the Board of Trustees for this incredible honor, and for TWE for continuing to always advise me since I've been here, distinguished guests, staff and alumni, and also my peers. Thank you so much for this honor. I remember that at the 40th anniversary, which I was so excited to celebrate with you all, a mother came up to me and she said, after I had done speaking, she said to me that she was actually very fearful that her daughter was going to be entering community college because she didn't know what that fate meant. She didn't understand what that future meant. But after hearing the stories and the plight of many students, she actually felt very encouraged. And she's now going to encourage her other children to do the same, to also attend community college. And that is a pathway that was real. And for a mother to come up to me to tell me that story, I found incredibly enlightening. Because it showed to me that within the 5 years that I have been out of community college, the changes and the progress, the misconception which turned into awareness about community college, and none of that would be possible without you all. It really would not have been possible without your efforts in continuing to promote community college as a pathway. And I'm very grateful and proud that I am part of that pathway. And I will continue to always hold that pathway very dear to my heart. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Anybody else?
Thank you. I put it over at your seat.
One thing that wasn't added is that Tenzin actually spent some time in Berkeley also. So I just want to mention she also spent some time at UC Berkeley, so go Bears, even though she's a Stanford undergrad. So congratulations on all your achievements, and we look forward to following your career. And don't forget about us when you're in New York at the United Nations. Thank you, Tenzin. You make us really proud.
Okay. One distinguished honor that Tenzin holds, as far as we've been able to research the records, she is the first Rhodes Scholar of the Peralta School System in 50 years.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. We're moving on to the next item, which is Board of Trustee reports. Let's start with Trustee Withrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Trustee Brown and I attended the advocacy seminar hosted by the AACC this past week. We spent a full day on the Hill in the offices of Senators Feinstein and Boxer, congressional representatives Barbara Lee and Eric Swalwell. The latter is the successor to Pete Stark and covers the area from San Leandro down. And we tend to try and build a relationship with that district as well, because a lot of our students, especially at Laney, come from San Leandro. We had an extensive meeting with the GI Bill Outreach Development Team Leader for the VA. Very rich meeting, and we have a stack of material that we'll put together and send out to the colleges. We then attended the seminar, and it was a relatively small group of about 40, which allowed for an intimate interchange of ideas and comments, concerns. Our luncheon keynote speakers were Richard Gebhardt, who had 28 years as a Democratic leader in the House, and I think is a well-known, very, very bright, extremely well-spoken individual who spoke off the record and was very candid in his views. He was followed the next day by Mike Castle, who spent 18 years as a Republican veteran of the House and a two-term former governor of Delaware. Also a very bright centrist, if you will. The American Association of Community Colleges, the AACC, is a sister organization of the ACCT, and they are a joint sponsor of the legislative session held in February of each year. But they differ in that they're a hardcore lobbyist group who work with the halls of Congress and sponsor legislation, work with the staffs to modify and whatever legislation that is designed to benefit the community colleges, or conversely, not benefit the community colleges. They have 5 key executives that we met with for both days who have a discipline or a program type focus. We heard presentations by the administration's community college initiatives and policies, the White House Office of Domestic Policy. I might add at this point that I was surprised that the White House had such a focus on community colleges. The New America Foundation's Education Policy Program, federal funding perspectives from the one of the key representatives that is a very stalwart fan and supporter of community colleges, Nita Lowry. A panel discussion among 4 representatives of the Washington media, including Kelly Field from the Chronicle of Higher Education. I think most of us have seen some of her columns. A panel discussion on regulatory issues and policies that included a segment of the regulatory burden placed upon community colleges because of the various laws, rules, regulations, and oversight and all of that sort of thing. Something that over the years many of us have called unfunded mandates, which by their own law has been outlawed, but neither here nor there. The Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Department of Labor talked about workforce development. She was very enthusiastic, but came across talking in a language that was somewhat a composite of Russian, Mandarin, and Gaelic. It reminded me of a seminar that Trustee Handy had me attend in another conference, and I walked away after a 2-hour period not knowing a slightest on what people had talked about. They have whatever. I don't want to get into it, but the only question I asked was, is it working? And she said, well, not yet, but we're very hopeful. We had a very interesting presentation by Stan Collender, and he's a leading noted expert on the federal budget, spending revenues, national debt, congressional budget process, et cetera. He's a major consultant to large Wall Street firms as well as major corporations throughout the United States. And he talked nonstop for about an hour and a half in a very quantified fashion. We had a presentation on accreditation policy by Judith Eaton from the Committee on Higher Education Accreditation, CHIA. That one was a little disconcerting in many ways in that Congress is, per her words, focused more on compliance rather than increased quality of education. He talked about how the tribal instincts in polarization has occurred and will continue occurring in Washington, D.C., where of the American population that are qualified to register to vote, only 55% register, and of that amount, normally not quite 50%, somewhere between 40 and 50% vote. Therefore, 25% of the population controls. And let's see, what was it? Well, he ran through a bunch of numbers saying that, based on numbers, that the Republicans will take the Senate in 2014. It will return to the Democrats in 2016. The Republicans will take it again in 2018, and the Democrats will take it back in 2020. I won't run through all the numbers, but I found that to be an interesting flip-flop. Nursing, we had a presentation by the one of the higher mucky mucks in the nursing world, in a policy standpoint, who on 5 different occasions was very adamant that there is not a nursing shortage in the country, and that projections, not only what is occurring now, but projections over time, that there's not a shortage, and that right now 51% of the nurses have a bachelor's degree, and that's projected to go to 80% by 2020. And it basically is motivating, she is motivating students to move on and get their bachelor's degree, because they not only may not be hired right away, they might not be kept on during cutbacks. And by the way, Doctor, I've got the name of this lady that I can give to you so that you can follow up with her to, and I gave her your name. I'll run through all of this stuff. Well, one of the figures that Congress looks at, and this came from the accreditation head, is that they state that they invest $175 billion per year from the federal level in education. And for that, they want to know, what are we getting for it? And that's a lot more money than I thought that was provided. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. Trustee Oliver. Trustee Gonzalez-Yun.
Thank you. Mostly I spent time this past week up at Berkeley City College celebrating the 40th anniversary. It was kind of an incredible series of events, starting with this press conference, which was really highlighting the Student Ambassador Program and the outreach in the community with Mayor Bates, and mostly what was impressive was the students, actually. I want to then note just talk for a minute about the celebration on Friday. Trustee Handy and I were there representing the board, and I'll say that during and at the end of the evening, I never felt more proud to be a trustee in this district, because that event highlighted what we do here in the community colleges, what we do at Peralta, and then in particular what we do at Berkeley City College. And I want to just highlight a couple quick things. First of all, there was a dedication of the new mural in the ground level of the Berkeley City College atrium. And if you haven't been up there, you should go look. Over the last year or so, I've been watching this thing get, sort of conceptualized and put on the wall and then modified, and seeing the artists have discussions with people going by. And this was the time when the students were organizing around the minimum wage campaign in Berkeley. And so it was a really nice sort of synchronicity of watching this political piece of art go up on the wall and then watching the politics of Berkeley kind of being played out. It was a nice place where, reality and art were interacting. There was a lovely art fundraiser. It was a silent auction. I got a nice little piece of art by M.H. Drew Kim that blossoms in sunlight. I'll pass this around. Don't walk away with it, because it's a lovely piece of art, and I know where it's going on at my house. You never know. The formal program then had two things that I thought were especially noteworthy. One was a video which highlighted some of the students from college who've really had some success, including Esteem Bloomfeld, who sat right here for a year as a student trustee, and I think it was 2010-11. He now works at Berkeley City College as a student, coordinating the student ambassadors, working with the student ambassadors. And one of the things that I just didn't know about him, and it's kind of one of these things you learn about students and you see them so accomplished. But in the short video, he talked about his family background. He was born in prison because his mother was incarcerated. He never went to school. All the way through high school, he never went to school. He arrived at Berkeley City College basically functionally illiterate. And what we were able to do was work with him. Now, he's the main partner here because it was his drive that got him where he was. But what we were able to do was open a door for him that he walked through and provide him with an incredible education. And a lot of times, I think, sometimes maybe some of you have heard Van Jones speak, and he talks about how a lot of times we look at, in the society, the dominant ethos of the society is to look at young people as the problem in the society. People like Esteem really prove that the young people in our society aren't the problem, they're the solution, and all we have to do is provide the resources to make that solution a reality. And that's one of the things that you can see happening at Berkeley City College. The other part of the program that was just amazing was the musical program. So, we're trying to raise money to put a piano in the auditorium there. And the new music program that's developing at Berkeley City College was it's like, we teach the top 100%. It was a gathering of the entire community, people who are really struggling and they don't really know how to read and write, and people who are highly educated and coming back and engaging in lifelong learning. And the sublime music of that event really it was this amazing, wonderful event. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Yeah, I know, great. I'm going to stop talking now, but kudos to the faculty, staff, and students. Yeah. Actually, I was going to start reading from the phone book now. And, all right, thank you very much. I'm done now.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. Yeah, and really appreciate your remarks, and thank you for sharing the 40th anniversary event with us in such detail. Thank you. Trustee Galasso.
Thank you. In view of time, I'm going to condense my 35-page report into one page. So if you listen to me, it's very brief. First of all, I want to congratulate President Budd on her fine stewardship of Berkeley City College. When I told my daughter we were having the 40th anniversary celebration, which I wasn't able to attend, she said, to just tell everybody how great it was. She graduated from Vista a few years back and went off to form her own business. And as a matter of fact, I think right now is on her way to Brazil to make a presentation. So keep my fingers crossed. The other thing I want to mention is yesterday I had the opportunity to attend the public forum on the Deputy Chancellor candidates, and I wanted to say that I was heartened to see the quality of some of the candidates that were presented. But of course, someone we all know here, Ron Gerhardt, made a presentation. I'm very, very thrilled with the idea that we will have a Deputy Chancellor. And based on the qualities of some of the candidates that I've seen here, I know we'll make the proper decision. But I wanted to thank the Chancellor for bringing those folks together here, and we're all looking forward to the stewardship of our enterprise here. And thank you. That's my basic report. I will be on the plane tonight to Chicago for a CCT Winds of Change conference. Thank you.
Fantastic. Just a quick update. The Giants are up 7-0, top of the seventh. That's my report. Trustee Brown.
Briefly, I'd like to add to the report that Trustee Withrow gave regarding the trip to Washington, D.C. for advocacy and for the advocacy training, that the why. If you'll recall, in 2013, the trustees had visited Capitol Hill in February. Actually, no, that was earlier this year. It was this year, actually, in a snowstorm, because the Higher Education Act is being reauthorized. The importance of that is that the Title III and Title IV funding, that's Pell Grants, that is the Title III funding for our students that need the most support, low-income students. All of the money that we get from the federal government to support our students comes through the Higher Education Act. And so we've been working on, it's up for reauthorization. There's a discussion or debate as to whether or not anything will happen, but given that we have a presidential election coming up until after the election. But I want to just note the importance of that for our community. And that is why Trustee Withrow and I went to Capitol Hill just this October, and Trustee Handy and I, when we went to the Congressional Black Caucus, made a point of going back and talking to both sides of the aisle, the Republican and the Democratic members of the committees that are going to be deciding what language goes into the reauthorization. So the Chancellor is organizing in January a visit from our lobbyists in Washington, D.C. that will be able to bring the information and the details to you and let you know more about what we're doing when we're going to these offices and telling the story of Peralta and the good work that our college presidents are doing and that our chancellor is doing in the district to serve our students. So I want to just make sure in this environment of knowledge and of information that we give the why. Why is it important? And we'll get more of that in January.
Trustee Handy?
Yes. Again, I also had the opportunity to attend the two events at Berkeley City College. And what struck me, standing there with the ambassadors and hearing their story, is that the community that has been created for students who have no family sometimes or no community. One of the things that Tinson said is that the community that she felt that she did not have a place before coming to Berkeley City. And the community that was formed through the ambassador program has been the only time that she felt that sense of community. And this is even after leaving and going to her other colleges in Stanford and Oxford. That's something very, very special. And it made me really think about how many students we have who are coming here from other countries, from other states, that are really alone. So I just can't tell you how proud I am of the ambassador program. It keeps people from slipping through the cracks. Those who may not even know that they're alone or isolated have the opportunity to be a part of something. And I think that's something very special and something that we should strive to have so that we don't have the forgotten students who come in, get their education, and go out. But we don't know if they're living in cars. We don't know if they're not eating. we don't know if they just don't have someone else to talk to in that day. So I really want to say congratulations on having a very successful program. And it was just wonderful to see some of the old students come back and to see the community. And the other thing that was surprising but very pleasing was to see Mayor Bates' absolute passion for education. I had not had an opportunity to hear him speak. Actually, I was there at the groundbreaking for Berkeley City College. I was running for office. They put me in the picture just in case I won. And so to come 12 years later and to really hear that the dream that he had of connecting, because he was running for mayor at the time, the dream he had of connecting Berkeley City College with the city of Berkeley, and to be at that press conference to see where the ambassadors are reaching out to the K through 12 and the high school programs, to see that it's really happening. So I'm very proud to be a part of this. And so it helps us to remember why we do all of this. The next thing, and also I want to say personally, I'm grateful to Berkeley City College because of their sign language program. My sister was deaf all of her life and received a cochlear implant 12 years ago. But did not speak sign language, but was very good at lip reading. And my sister is 70. She's now attending Laney College, but she learned sign language at Vista College and has a close relationship there and will often go back to visit. You can imagine how empowering it is for someone who has had silence all of their life to all of a sudden be able to communicate through sign language, which she uses a lot. She speaks as well as uses sign language at the same time. But getting the implant and being able to communicate. Now my sister's been at Laney, I think, for 2 years, and she says to me, she goes, "Sister, I'm smart." I mean, these are things, she comes from an era where if you had a disability, they put you in a room and they gave you a deck of cards. So the community colleges can do just an invaluable service. It is just so amazing how lives are turned around. I just want to thank each and every one of you for what you do, and especially the relationship that I've had going to Laney, but what you've done for my family as well, so thank you. Oh, and this is not my announcement, this is the foundation's announcement. Want to remind all of you that on October 30th at 6 p.m., we're going to be having the Peralta Community College District's grand reception celebrating the past and building for the future. This is the birthday of Peralta, the 50th anniversary of Peralta Community Colleges. So I've been putting it out on Facebook, asking anyone who's ever attended the Peralta Colleges to come on back and just come and celebrate what Peralta's done for us and what we as a community can do for the colleges. So we have some invitations here. The invitations are on Facebook. They're going out. But I hope that all of you can plan to attend. It's not very expensive. It's $50. No host bar. You're going to have the reception as, what is you calling it now? The sunset reception. For those of you who are not familiar with Merritt College, it has the most spectacular views that if you're having a meeting while the sun is setting, you might as well forget it because everyone's attention is going to be drawn. So this is an opportunity for you all to come on out and get your party on and celebrate Peralta Colleges. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Handy. Trustee Riley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, this is an announcement. The Civic Pride this Saturday will be hosting their annual conference. It's titled Knowledge is Power Youth Leadership Conference, Saturday, October 25th at the Waterfront Hotel. We're major co-sponsors, the Peralta Community College Districts, and a major sponsor of this event, and just look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Thank you. We move on to District Academic Senate report. Is there a report from the Academic Senate this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. And good evening, trustees, chancellor, district administration center staff, college presidents, colleagues, and members of the public. Perhaps the most essential core feature of the work that we do as an educational institution is a focus on learning. We speak of the learning college, student learning, faculty teaching and learning initiatives, learning challenges, impediments to learning, even a learning society. And while we use the terms, mostly we take it for granted that we have some idea what learning is or means. For the past 2 weeks, in the introductory psychology courses that I'm teaching, we've been exploring learning, what it is, how we define it, what it means to learn, and how we know that it has occurred or is occurring. As you might imagine, learning is a chapter in every introductory psychology textbook. Most recently, our standard definition of learning is, quote, a relatively permanent change in behavior, knowledge, capability, or attitude that is acquired through experience and cannot be attributed to illness, injury, or maturation. With that definition, we intentionally leave basic motor skills and the maturational plan that governs their development out of the discussion. What usually comes next in the evolution of this topic is an in-depth consideration of a particular type of learning known as classical conditioning, or learning by association, primarily as a reflexive response to a given stimulus. Then operant learning, learning that is the result of the learner's response to conditions that increase or decrease the frequency of a behavior. And hundreds of terms and concepts later, we briefly begin to explore other forms of learning, for example, cognitive learning and observational learning. But the vast majority of the time we spend on the learning phenomenon is devoted to classical and operant conditioning. While these constructs are clearly important, given the ways they are demonstrated in our lives, they barely scratch the surface of our efforts to really understand and exhibit learning. Partly, that limitation is a function of the ways in which we study the phenomenon by counting and measuring specific behaviors in an artificially constructed environment that rarely mimics the real world. Partly, however, that limitation is a function of how we determine that learning has occurred or is occurring, or how we assess learning. In my view, far too much of that assessment is based on the student's regurgitation of factual data that they, A, may never use, B, won't remember next month, let alone next year, or C, results that an intelligent search engine query would return. In the 21st century, barring a massive technological implosion or failure, that kind of assessment is at best an enormous waste of time that doesn't result in workforce readiness, for starters, let alone the ability to live a meaningful and productive life. I've been thinking about this a lot lately and have come to the conclusion that a more useful way to describe learning is as the outcome of, in the words of Dr. Stuart Firestein, a pursuit of ignorance. One of Dr. Firestein's main points in his TED Talk of September 24th, 2013, is that we learn from the questions we ask about what we think we know, not so much from the answers to those questions. In a recent conversation about learning with my youngest brother, Cliff, he observed that he can tell when someone has learned something by the kinds of questions they ask, not by the answers they offer. This observation struck me as profoundly meaningful, and not just because my brilliant brother spoke it. That conversation sent me off in search of a way to structure the next stage of classroom learning experiences in which students are asked to generate as many questions about the topic of their research project as possible, then to aggregate those questions by type. In that search, I discovered that there are at least 2 and as many as 10 different categories or types of questions. At its simplest, there are open or open-ended and closed questions. If we expand to 3 types, there are factual, conceptual, and provocative questions. 5 types are factual, divergent, convergent, evaluative, and combination questions. I won't bore you with the 10 different types, but if anyone is curious, I can provide the references that led me to them. Circling back to where this exploration started, I should tell you that the major research paper in my classes is what is referred to as an inquiry-based learning project. And for some time, I've toyed with the notion of using inquiry-based learning to structure our approach to all course content. We're not there yet, but where we are is finding ways to scaffold my students' learning experiences with the hoped-for outcome of their construction of a personally meaningful and action-oriented essential question around which to create a research project. Of course, I could go on and on, but I won't, at least not now. Tonight, I'll pause with a suggestion or perhaps a challenge. As a learning institution, we all may well be better served and better serve our students by reorienting our work around developing more and better questions rather than by determining what we think of as answers, and by facilitating our students in asking more and better questions rather than by assessing their ability to offer usually what we decide are the right answers. That concludes my report for tonight. Thank you for indulging me in sharing these thoughts.
Thank you for that thought-provoking report, Dr. Van Putten. Much appreciated. We move on to the next item, which is board business, the consent calendar. I'd now like to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
There's a motion by trustee Withrow, seconded by trustee Riley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent calendar is approved. We move on to the action calendar. The first action item is action item number 9. That's consider approval of the board meeting calendar for 2015. That item was pulled by trustee Oliver. Trustee Oliver.
I just wanted to know, I don't see any materials on it, but is it the same calendar as last time, or was it updated, or what, basically?
The calendar has been updated, and it should have been put into the Dropbox materials. So we can, if you don't have that, we can certainly get an updated calendar for you. Any other discussion from the trustees? Trustee Withrow.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The calendar has been modified, and I want to appreciate the Chancellor and Board Clerk wrestling with the calendar to come up from 15 meetings to 19 meetings, which I think is approaching something that's politically acceptable. Hopefully by 2016, we can move that up to 20. The one area I'd like to talk about, though, has to do with suggested items for briefing the board on a periodic basis. And the Chancellor incorporated many of the key ones. Quite frankly, the very important ones are included and identified on a per-month basis, so that we can see that in a certain month, the month of April, certain items will be presented. I'd like to see that expanded to a number of additional topics that I think are important for not only informing the board, but by informing the board, we're informing the institution, the various constituencies, and we're informing the public. But from the standpoint of our role as a governance body, not a management body, that by having these items on the agenda, we codify and document the fact that the institution has in fact briefed the public on performance on a number of subjects. I don't intend to go through all of them tonight, wouldn't make sense, but I would like to have that and a suggestion that we structure the calendar so that we have a business meeting, maybe the first meeting of the month in a given month where we have 2 meetings is a business meeting, and the second meeting would be a governance meeting. And in the governance meeting, we would have nothing but briefings on various topics that are important to the operation of the institution. And I would like to see that as a part of the agenda for the forthcoming board workshop coming up in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Galassa.
Thank you, Trustee Withrow. I appreciate your concern about the quality of evidence, the quality of the data we receive, and giving us a sense of mastery of what we are about, which is our fiduciary responsibility and student success are probably the 2 primary ones. One of the problems I have with just endless meetings is that the whole act of these meetings becomes a kind of a passive watching worldwide news kind of event where, as you note, we're hour and 30 minutes into this meeting here tonight, and we've received basically reports from everybody. So what I'd like to do is see if we can have a more active way of involving ourselves. That is, in several districts, and I've seen also several demonstrations, there are software where many of the very important functions that we want to monitor, for example, the enrollment, we want to monitor the budget, and the software actually presents not an easy way, but a very clear way to receive the information and see it all in a sense at once. For example, there's one, unfortunately, it's a little, I don't like the word dashboard, but it actually has a dashboard and it has dials, and dials have needles, and the needles point to where enrollment is. Merit is 10% off key, so-and-so is 15%. You don't even have the actual hardcore data. You're getting the summary report, which would be the one that I would then say, hey, I want the data for this report. It looks bad. Things are going downhill. So I'm not criticizing or objecting to what Trustee Withrow is attempting to do. I'm trying to figure out a better way to actually absorb this information in a way that allows us to be proactive and act independently. That is, we can consult these kinds of sources in our own free time, away from the desk here, and keep in touch and raise the kind of questions that I think we really have to raise. So I agree that this is a kind of project that we can discuss in a retreat, Trustee Withrow, that we can decide on some alternatives, ways of getting meaningful access to meaningful data in a meaningful period of time. So, amen.
Thank you, Trustee. I have Trustee Brown, then Trustee Gonzalez-Yan, and then Trustee Oliver.
Actually, I was just going to voice my appreciation for the calendar that has the topic items that address the governance role of the Board of Trustees. And also just note that I'm looking forward to also the Chancellor and the college presidents working through how we'll get updates on the status of the colleges through this new calendar.
Thank you. Trustee Gonzalez-Yan.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that we're adding some more meetings to the calendar because I think that there has been business that we haven't quite gotten to. And I appreciate the enumeration of different topics. And I guess I want to voice some concern that this will be overwhelming. And you know how, like, sometimes the president these days, when they've been signing legislation, they have signing statements. Well, I'd like to voice my, when I vote for this calendar, it comes with the caveat that I view the topics of discussion somewhat more flexibly than we will see a report on this particular item at that particular time in a particular format. I tend to agree with Trustee Galassa that there are probably ways of making sure that the board and the public is apprised of status reports without drowning us in reports, which could be extremely time-consuming on the part of the staff. Thank you.
Trustee Oliver.
No, okay, so I do see the calendar now, and I do see the topic of discussions are updated. It's even added that the accreditation, preparation, and corrective action, like Trustee Withrow asked for at the last meeting, is on there. I think that's appropriate. Also, what I think could be appropriate, I hear what you guys are saying about not being drowned with reports, but the governing board is supposed to adopt, the colleges are supposed to write their SSSP plans and student equity plans and submit them to the board for approval. And I think maybe for the next year that there should be some dates with, like an update on how those plans are implemented. Maybe.
Just want to point out that that is, has been discussed and is, I think the chancellor is aware of the board's direction, that that's certainly an area of focus for this board. And it's outlined in May, currently, falls under that report in May under student success. But the way I see this is, I think this is a good planning document. It's a good planning tool to give the board and the board officers a plan and the administration a plan as to where to focus on. And I wanted to clarify when or my understanding of Trustee Withrow's comment about briefing the public is that the board represents the public. We are the elected officials, we represent the public in that sense. Those reports come to the board, and it's not necessarily, and it's information for the Board of Trustees to be able to ask other questions as they may come up. So I just want to be clear that it's not necessarily, we're going to have 5 presentations at the May board meeting necessarily, but it's information that comes to the board for our review and whatever subsequent action I think needs to be taken at that point. And the reports, of course, are available to the public, as any documents are that are available to the Board of Trustees. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Did we already made a motion for approval, actually, so I'd like to call for the question. Trustee Gonzalez, did you? No?
I just wanted to clarify. The understanding is we are adopting this. You used the phrase that it would be a good point of discussion in a future retreat.
I think these are, I think these are dates that we should plan for meetings. I think we're.
No, I agree with the dates. I was referring to the topics of discussion.
Right, and I think that the board should discuss those in a retreat or in a workshop. The topics, as you suggested as well.
Okay, with that, I vote my.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes. Move on to item number 16. That is on the action calendar. Calendar item number 16, Linda, is consider approval to increase the amount of an ICC for Timothy Gibbon from $20,000 to $55,000 for Moodle online support for the district. The presenter on this item is Vice Chancellor Orkin, and this item was pulled by Trustee Handy. Trustee Handy.
I saw that.
There. In reading this document, my challenge is not to the Moodle online support for the district. That's not the question at all. This is a $35,000 increase for an independent consulting contract. $35,000 increase. If it was originally $20,000, if it was the thought, was that it was really originally going to be $20,000. I'm sure that does not require like a bidding process. But when you get into contracts that are $55,000, then I believe that it should be an open bidding process as opposed to $20,000 and then it's like you're applying for one job but you're actually getting another. This is a lot more extensive, and so I just don't think that that's the right way to go about it. We don't usually have a contract that is doubled. And so, that just screamed at me that I'm sure that there are people who said, well, why didn't I have the opportunity to bid for this? That's more than salaries of some positions. So I just don't like the idea of us starting something with $20,000 and then without an open bidding process. And this is not an indictment on the person who's providing the services. But because this is so much more than the original contract, I think that this needs to be a different process. I personally don't like seeing a contract that comes to us and then continues to grow through change orders or whatever. I'd like to see that that when we do something like that, it's based on a master plan. And if it was based on a master plan, then why didn't we know when we originally did this that it was going to increase so much? So that's my concern.
Thank you, Trustee Handy. Other trustees, any other questions on this item? Trustee Brown?
I just wanted to clarify that it's my understanding that when Trustee Handy was mentioning the competitive bid process, she meant a competitive selection process where we got consultants to submit proposals and give us their competitive prices. And the idea was that the district would be getting the best price and the best services with respect to our Moodle online support program.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Yes.
Mr. Gibbon has actually been working at the district for the last 3 years. He was originally hired by Dr. Ung to help with international students at $55,000. And so the reason he started this year at $20,000 was because it was in the summer, and also we were trying to figure out if there was a way to get someone who was not a contractor but a full-time person. So he really has been getting $55,000 for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, his position is somewhat unique and really can only be handled by a contractor because he provides support for Moodle students and faculty 24/7 essentially, and can do that as a contractor is supposed to do such things, namely on his own time and without an office and online at all times. But it's not, I certainly wouldn't want to start a new person out at $20,000 and then increase it to $55,000. He's been around for a while, and I'm frankly trying to find a way to make this an actual position which we can have an open advertisement for.
Thank you. Is there any other questions on this item? Trustee Handy?
Thank you. If this was written differently, that would have, yes, okay, and I like that. Are there, how do other, have you looked into how other colleges handle theirs? Is there, do they have their, is there some network that supports questions, or does it have to be specific to each college? I'm sure you've looked into all
You mean
that.
to each district?
I mean, into
Yeah,
each
right,
district.
right.
Because you said you were, trying to find a way around that.
Right, well, typically, actually, Peralta's Moodle support staff is much smaller than a typical college district, either community colleges or, for example, Cal State East Bay, where I was for a while. And so it would be nice to have a full-time person, although Tim Gibbon actually provides support that other colleges may not be able to provide, essentially 24/7 type support, and many faculty and students taking online classes stay up very late. So I think we should probably, since Moodle is being used more and more, not just by online faculty teaching online courses and students taking online courses, but by faculty as a learning resource tool for students taking regular classes, it would probably make sense to be talking about beefing up our staff.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yan.
Thank you, Trustee Handy, for pulling this item. I want to reiterate, I think if the item had been written differently, it would have been more clear, and so that would have been just helpful. A little background information about who the person is in the service. Question, do we really just have this one staff person to support our online Moodle program?
We have a full-time staff person, Sujana Tumu, who's a technical support person who actually puts up the new shells and helps Dr. Banga with various other things, helps make sure student rosters are loaded and stuff. But we really only have one part-time person, namely Tim Gibbon, who serves as the so-called help desk for both faculty and students.
Well, whatever we're paying him, if he can do it, I mean, that's kind of amazing. Where I teach, we've got a staff of 4 who supports the online learning.
How many campuses there?
That's just for De Anza. Foothill has its own thing going on there. And every campus, their version of Moodle is a little different, so you can't just have one Moodle person who could service multiple districts. So, if we can do this for, it sounds like it really does need to be an in-house staff position, though. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I neglected to ask for a motion, so I'll entertain a motion for approval. It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We move to item number 27 on the agenda. This item is the side letter to the approved project labor agreement between the district and Alameda County Building and Construction Trade Council and related signatory unions. This is a reminder that this is just a first reading this evening for discussion purposes and to answer questions that the board may have. This item will come back to the board at the next regular meeting.
We have
Chancellor
Jake
Ortiz.
Sloan. Well, I was just going to suggest that Jake Sloan is here.
Let me ask the board for a motion. I'd like to, let me ask for a motion.
So this is just informational.
Correct.
So moved.
So, seconded.
There's a motion made by trustee Withrow, seconded by trustee Galassa. Let's go into discussion. Any questions, trustee Gonzalez?
First of all, I'm not quite sure what the motion is, because
The
it's an
motion is
informational.
it's informational. It's a first reading. We're accepting the first reading of this
Okay,
document.
so we're not
And
approving,
gonna
it's
come
just
back
we're accepting a
Correct.
first reading. Okay.
for discussion purposes, because I know
So-
some of the trustees had questions at the last meeting.
Yeah.
We wanted to provide an opportunity to have those questions answered.
That's great, thank you. I have a few different questions, and I'm happy to defer to other people, but I'll just, first, if that makes sense, or I can put them out. One, I'd love to see what this, where does this side letter fit in the scheme of best practices for a community college district? I think a number of us have not been that satisfied with the integration of our CTE programs and our bond program. Now, I think probably every member on this board is a big supporter of the building trades and the concept of a PLA. I think we all supported that and fought for it when it first came around. And having said that, I don't know that we're that happy with all of the results. So one, I'd like a sense of comparison if we look at other districts across the country that have PLAs, that have CTE programs. What are the great PLAs look like in terms of integration with the CTE programs? I'd like to secondly know what the enforcement mechanisms are. So I see we'll do our best at it. We'll make a good faith effort to do placements and so forth. And if those placements in fact don't meet our targets, what is our recourse? In the past, we have not hit our targets around small local business. Doesn't seem like there's a great recourse for us, and so I'm interested what the main contract says in that regard and whether we can put some real teeth into this thing. And then my third area has to do with the question of underrepresentation. We're defining underrepresentation in a particular way. It seemed to me that maybe part of that, maybe that was defined in consultation with our district staff who work with underrepresented communities. One area that I noticed wasn't there that I'd be interested in exploring is the entire area of AB 540 students and those who are eligible for DACA deferred action. It seems to me that that's a seriously at-risk population of students who struggle trying to find jobs, et cetera, because of the particular nature of being AB 540 students. I think it's probably worth calling out and exploring as a specific area that we would want to include in this underrepresentation. So those are the three areas, and I'm sure my colleagues have other questions.
So what I'd like to do, Jake Sloan is here, a consultant who's been working on this piece. I'd like to ask the other trustees to bring up their questions that they may have at this time. And then I'd like to have Jake entertain those questions, if that's agreeable. I have Linda Handy on the list as well. Trustee Handy.
Well, actually, I didn't have questions, more of a statement. I understand this process is very, very difficult, and our first PLA was very rushed. We were grateful to do it, but it did not have teeth. last October, when I attended ACCT in Seattle, I had an opportunity to attend a session where I saw what PLAs were doing in LA and how students were being trained, and then how students were working on the construction on the campuses that they were working, and how other groups how the whole community had come together to put together a PLA that really worked for the community. And when I came back, I started inquiring about the status of ours and when the time came for it, when ours was going to need to be renewed. Having an opportunity to talk with building trades, we found that building trades shared the same views, that they wanted to have a PLA with teeth. They recognized that it was rushed before. And then talking to other community members who had programs where they wanted the apprenticeship programs, they wanted apprenticeship programs brought back to the Bay Area. What we found that in a PLA, it's a bigger community piece, and it seems that all of the pieces, Peralta, building trades, we have our consultant who is bringing us information in terms of best practices, that they've all been able to come together and put an agreement. And the thing that we're very fortunate with is that we were all on the same page. So what I'm understanding now is that with the agreements that we have, and then we're still not completed, but we are very, very close to not having perfected, but we are very close to having a PLA where we can actually begin to start doing the type of works that we want to do again, start to have the types of apprenticeship programs and the things that will come out of a PLA. So my questions have been answered, and my questions were really in terms of before versus now, and I understand that that everyone is on the same page, that everyone is in agreement, that we're all talking. And so at this point, I'm very pleased to see that we are very close to having a new PLA that is really going to benefit Peralta, our community, and construction and trades as well, but especially our students.
Thank you. Trustee Brown?
I'd like to request that we also have an opportunity to hear from Laney College President Dr. Elnora Webb, who has the construction program at her institution, because it is that program that is a very major component of this side letter for the PLA, because what we had learned from talking with the building trades and talking with the community is that the training that's received at Laney College sets our students above and separate from other apprentices or other people that are looking for apprentice programs, because they have a sustainability in their commitment, in their training, in their preparedness for a career in the building trades. And it's that platform that is provided by hiring our students who are in our program and who have successfully completed our program that makes this side letter or this apprenticeship program special and different. And it's a unique cooperation between our business partners, being our career and trade organization, the building trades, and our colleges, because we're actually preparing people to go into an industry that helps and strengthens our community. And it's their desire, the building trades' desire, to have this partnership. And our students would get advanced placement, they'd get preferential placement because they'd be farther along in their understanding and their training. And there were surveys done and some careful discussions done about the number of projects that we have, the dollar amount of projects that we have, the students that we could place in those projects. And the idea was that students from our community, particularly students that were underrepresented and eligible to work and be hired by the contractors through the laws that are placed by the federal government in the state of California, would be the students that would be placed, because of course a project labor agreement has been approved by the Supreme Court as being allowable to avoid labor unrest, but the other laws, employment laws, labor laws, all of those are still required for compliance by the Peralta Community College District. So if our questions can be directed to both Mr. Sloan and Dr. Webb in terms of the research that's been done on this and the background and the benefit that our students have in completing our construction program at Laney and the desire for the building trades to partner with the Peralta Community College District, I think that would be helpful.
Chancellor, would you like to speak on this item or introduce Jake on this item?
Well, this is our first reading, and it was an opportunity to get feedback from the board, and Jake Sloan is here to receive that. Jake, I don't know if you have any comments about where we move from here. We're coming back on the November 18th meeting for approval. We're trying to get labor and the district to come to an agreement. I know Dr. Webb has some interest in this document, so I will ask her to take a look at it and provide my office with feedback so that we can share it with Mr. Sloan. Other than that, if trustees also have something else to add, we can channel that with me in my office, and we'll take care of it. Hopefully by November 18th, we have a final document. Do you have any comments? You're certainly welcome to speak.
I believe that we will have a document ready for board approval by November 18th. And let me tell you where we stand now. First of all, Mr. Gonzalez, the project labor agreement does not address business. It's a project labor agreement. There's often misunderstanding about that, but the only thing in the project labor agreement that addresses local businesses, from my perspective, is that local non-union contractors can bring their co-workers on the job without them having to become signatory to the unions. That's all that's in it about business. As far as local hiring, which I think is the main concern you have, the placement of graduates of Peralta, construction-related programs, we have an agreement in concept that the unions will take the graduates and place them into apprenticeship if they are capable, willing, and able or available to work on these projects, and they meet the minimum requirements of the Joint Apprenticeship Training Committees. And this is the way it will work. And keep in mind that the unions don't hire workers, the contractors hire workers. So the language reads that the contractor will be required to make every effort to hire local residents in the following ratios. For the first $1 million of work, the contractor has to hire at least one new first-stage apprentice, hopefully from one of the construction-related training programs. For every $5 million after that, they have to hire another first-stage apprentice. So for $100 million worth of work, you're talking about 20 new apprentices. And it doesn't sound like much, but in this industry, that's a lot of first-stage apprentices to take in. So that's the requirement that we have on the table. Now, the unions are in agreement with that in concept, but we have to work out the mechanics. How is it done? Because Andreas Kluver can't speak for the building trades. He is their representative. All this has to be vetted by all of his members. And I believe we can get that done by the time of your next meeting. The only issue with them in the beginning was they want to have influence over the curriculum. They want to serve in an advisory capacity. The chancellor and I have come to an agreement on that. If they can serve in an advisory capacity that is official, they will be on board. We just have to work out the mechanics of how we get it done. And there are other issues that we're working on that probably are not of great concern to you, but things like how jurisdictional disputes are resolved. We have people listed as arbitrators who are either dead or close to it. We need to replace the arbitrators, so we're working on a new list of arbitrators, a new jurisdictional dispute process, and the definition of a core worker. The contractor, the way the language reads now, the contractor can bring up to 5 of his core workers on the job without their becoming signatory to the union. They have to be dispatched through the union hall, but they don't have to become signatory. So the contractor hires 1 from the union hall, 1 from the core worker staff, up to 5, and they lay off the same way. We're adjusting the language to require that the contractor can only use a core worker if the core worker is a resident of your service area, which encourages more local hiring. That's essentially where we are, and I'll answer any questions that you may have, but At this point, it's just a matter of working out the mechanics of how we make this happen.
So I have a question actually. So one of the issues, or one of the, that's come up in the past is the fact that, we are competing for a finite pool of labor, essentially, for these projects, particularly in our service area. We have the port that has a PLA, there's other agencies in our service area that have a PLA, and I think those are good things, obviously, but how do we deal with the competition in terms of, that was an issue that came up in the past, that there weren't enough folks in the pool to be able to meet our requirements. So I'm not quite sure what's different than what we had agreed to several years ago.
The difference is that now we're going to focus on bringing new people into the building trades, because you make a good point. The port has a project labor agreement with local hiring goals. The city has one, BART has one, and we're drawing from a very limited pool of workers. So my approach for the last couple of years is to focus on bringing new people in. So we negotiated a project labor agreement for the county that has the same language, that if a contractor is working, they have to bring in new people. That's the only way we're going to resolve this problem in the long run, because bottom line is, right now, there are not enough people in the building trades to satisfy all these goals.
Trustee Brown?
Could I ask, in terms of providing some texture to this, if Dr. Webb could give us just a brief background on the discussions you've had through the Chancellor regarding this apprenticeship and hiring Peralta students that would be trained at Laney?
Thank you, trustees and Chancellor. Part of our discussion with some of our key leaders in the trades has come to a consensus, and that is that the project labor agreement could be enhanced significantly from what you just described. And two key areas. One, in terms of the level of training that our students receive, actually when compared to the apprenticeship programs itself, and we appreciate them, they lead to higher skilled individuals in a shorter period of time. So there's some initial agreements that we could look at a substantial number of individuals who successfully complete our carpentry program as one example. Rather than go through apprenticeship, as long as they earn the degree, they're able to move into the actual roles. So that's the kind of qualitative change we're looking at in terms of the PLA agreement. And it's with the understanding that we'd have a significant number of individuals prepared so that the dearth of qualified folks would no longer be as much of an issue as long as we're still offering what we're offering currently at Laney. So that's just only at the tip of the iceberg in terms of some of the substantive changes that we'd like to have part of that updated agreement.
I would welcome any language that you can give me. I will say this, that part of what we're negotiating will allow students not only to be, or graduates, not only to be placed as first stage apprentices, but if they can demonstrate skills that are higher than that, they can come in at a higher level, second stage, third stage.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yan.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan. I'm really glad to hear those last two pieces, because it's been my experience in the past that the integration of our building trades programs, for example, our environmental controls technology or electrical training program, has not been very well integrated with the trades apprenticeship programs. So to the extent that we can put in writing an actual agreement where we're sharing curriculum, where the trades programs lay out explicitly what it is that they are expecting their apprentices to master at various stages, so that our faculty can incorporate that into their curriculum development. And then there's actual reciprocity. Now, down at Chabot, for example, their students, when the electrical, apprentices are working through their program, they get college credit at Chabot. At least they used to. Why we haven't been able to work out those kinds of details in explicit detail as a quid pro quo for this kind of benefit, so that it really does benefit the community. I don't know, but I'm really glad to hear that we're having those discussions, and I'd like to see that more explicitly laid out than is laid out in this side letter. I want to come back to the question that I had asked before, and that was, and thank you for correcting me, I said small local business, I meant local hire. You know, I'd asked for, well, what are the best practices? If we look at what LA Trade Tech, for example, is doing, do they have a PLA with more explicit language, et cetera? I'd like to see that so that we're not looking at this in a vacuum, because I have no idea, like, is one apprentice for the first million and five, or, you know, one apprentice for the next five, is that a good number, or is that like bottom of the barrel? It's certainly better than we used to have. So that's one piece. And then I'd still like to hear discussion on the question of how we've defined underprivileged and whether we could consider AB 540 students as a particular population. I don't know whether that makes sense, but I think that if we really pay attention to that and have the discussions with the staff who are working with that student population, we'd come to some answer. And then this question about enforcement and whether the thing has teeth. I'd like specific responses to those questions, and you don't need them, I don't need them right now, but when we come back for a vote, I'm going to want more information. I personally, and I can't speak for my colleagues here, but that is a personal interest to me.
I took the language for identifying the disadvantaged population directly from the language that's in the LA PLA. So that language we have.
And so just if we can explore this additional population, I think that might be helpful for us. I'm perfectly happy to have that discussion here. I'm perfectly, all I'm asking for is an exploration and then a report from staff, whether that's a good idea or not. I don't know.
Let me just say, I think that there's, so, you know, we're not making a decision here. We're accepting the first reading. And I think that there's some questions. I certainly would be interested in learning about other models out there, including LA Trade Tech, and seeing how those populations are defined. But that's not to say that that's what's going to be agreed upon and negotiated between the staff and the trades. Certainly, that's information that's going to come back to us for us to make that decision at that point in time. But certainly, in terms of providing information to the board, I think that's something that should be provided to the trustees to make sure that language, other programs have been vetted thoroughly, and I know that you have done that work already.
I'd like to make a suggestion, if I may. It would be very helpful if I were able to work closely with Ms. Webb in pulling this together as a final document. I don't think you lose anything by delaying until January to get this done so we can work out something that's really beneficial to both sides, because the PLA has already been extended. It's just a matter of us getting the best language into it now. And I think if I could work with Ms. Webb and possibly a committee of the board on getting the specific language that you want into it.
What we would like to have happen is that you bring us back a proposal on the 18th for the board's consideration there, and hopefully all these issues will be worked out, and if not, then we'll let you know that those issues haven't met the satisfaction of the board, but we do want to entertain this at the November 18th meeting. Trustee Riley and then Trustee Handy.
So I think this comes to the question of sort of logistics of how we're going to handle this here. So I know that there's some board members have certain questions they would like to ask, and Mr. Sloan has indicated that he's willing to entertain those, but how do we direct those questions or inquiries to him? So I'm just trying to get...
That's a good question. I think that the questions that were aired here, I think they go through the Chancellor, and the Chancellor staff is obviously representing the board, and those questions should be directed through the Chancellor to our consultant here.
Okay, so what should be the timeline, because the next meeting will be before us quite quickly. It seems like it. So what would be?
So Trustee Riley, just to answer your question, we have, the next board meeting is on November 18th. We have agenda setting a week before then, which is, what is that, the 12th? The 11th? The 11th, so I think those questions would have to come to the board before certainly, at least, you know, I would prefer that you have more time to be able to delve into some of these questions. I mean, I think by the end of the month, I think you've heard the questions raised by the board here, and I don't know that they're gonna be much different.
If I could tighten this up just a little bit, Mr. President.
Yes,
So
Trustee Riley.
if we could get our questions to the Chancellor by the end of this month, which would be, what is that, that's Halloween? So if we can get our questions to the Chancellor, then he could be able to give Mr. Sloan and whoever everyone's going to be working with, should give him ample time to bring a report back. Because what I'm looking at on the 18th, we're going to be right where we're at now. So that's why I'm trying to get the questions.
Well, the question is, will there be additional issues, questions, comments, other than what we've heard this evening?
Yeah. And
Because certainly, we've heard that what was brought tonight, that's been recorded, it will be transcribed. You can have that information by the end of the month, meaning, in 10 days.
my suggestion, Chancellor, through the chair, if I may, is that if board members have additional questions that may occur, after we read all of our packages, before we go to sleep, then they get that to you the last day of this month.
That's right, so what I would,
That's just my suggestion.
yes, the answer is yes,
And then that should give.
which is the 31st.
Because I want to come
Right,
back
Friday,
here.
close of business.
Okay, we have a
Halloween.
question,
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman? So I want to understand, when I come back on the 18th, I'm coming back with a proposal based on my negotiations with the building trades. It's not a document for final approval, it's a proposal.
I'd like to see it a final document that's incorporated and answer the questions of the trustees so that it can be approved on the 18th to move forward. And certainly, I think that's what I'm hearing from the board. Trustee Handy?
I'm really a little disconcerted by the fact that this was pulled from last week's agenda, and then a whole slew of questions came up I thought the point of it being pulled from last week's agenda was to get those questions answered. And when I had questions, I sent the emails, and all of my questions were answered, so we were done. Again, I don't want to see this happen again next week. And my questions are answered. I've already done my research. I've seen the research. I don't need you to do a report. And asking for a report has to be a consensus of the board. Does all the board members want a report, or do you want specific information? So this is what we were talking about earlier. If one person wants a report, and that's going to take a lot of time to prepare that, is that something that everyone is looking for, or do we have specific questions? So my understanding is, and I wish you would just stop, I really do, because I just want to be really clear on this. If there are questions, can we get the questions to Mr. Sloan, so that Mr. Sloan can get those questions answered, but focus that time on completing the piece with the building trades and with Dr. Webb to get the language. He's already given us, we see that he's checked best practices with our local entities, with the port and the city. He's incorporated best practices from LA. So I don't know what more we're asking for. First I'm hearing, okay, I'm thinking that's great, we're doing our counties, and now I'm hearing doing other areas. I think we really need to be specific to what works for the Bay Area. So I am not interested in going out and reinventing the wheel. I am interested in tightening this up with the pieces that we have talked about today?
So just to clarify, there's no report that's being asked for. This purpose of this discussion is to give you feedback in terms of what the PLA, what the will of the board is, so that it comes back on the 18th, so ready for approval from this body.
Mr. President.
I have trustee Gonzalez. You want? Next meeting will be the second reading. Yes, the next meeting is the second reading.
So I think maybe there's a little bit of confusion here about what in fact the process is. I don't think I'm asking for a report. I am expressing concerns. Now, I don't know that my particular concerns are the concerns of the rest of this board. As one member of this board, I'm expressing particular concerns around enforcement. Apparently, some of my colleagues are privy to documentation that I'm not, if they understand what all of the other best practices are. I've not seen any comparables. I've not seen sort of comparisons. I've not seen an assessment of what LA has or what other entities have, what the port has, et cetera. And as a trustee who's looking at this document, I personally would like to know that. Now, I don't necessarily need to see a full-blown report, but that's in my mind. I've raised questions about how we define underprivileged. What's the particular target population? And I've raised a particular question regarding undocumented students who came to this country and would qualify as AB 540 students. I don't know whether that's of concern to my colleagues, and we could have that discussion. I'm not necessarily asking for a report. I'm saying that's one particular concern. I don't know how we do this as a process, because what Mr. Sloan has said is, well, to deal with some of these questions about curriculum and underprivileged, et cetera, he wants more time to actually be able to look at it, figure it out, negotiate it, because these aren't easy issues. And then there's the specific issues of curriculum. I've heard from our president of Laney that our curriculum could be better integrated with some of our building trades apprenticeship programs. I'm not seeing specific language that addresses that. Now, my guess is that's actually a little bit complicated to try to figure out, and that we're not going to be able to figure that out in 2 weeks. If you could figure it out, hallelujah. And I don't know, frankly, whether there is consensus on this board that we want a tighter integration. I'm saying, as one trustee, that is my concern. If we need consensus on this board that those are issues of concern, then let's have that discussion. And if we don't, let's leave this to the staff to figure out the best deal that they can cut on these issues.
I have trustee Brown and trustee Oliver.
One of the elements of confusion I think we have here is that there's a different experience and background in dealing with project labor agreements, dealing with construction, and the understanding of what the actual level of preparedness is for our graduates that come out of the construction programs at Laney College. What the college president of Laney said was that our graduates, for instance, are so well prepared that they could go right into the carpentry trade. She didn't say that the curriculum had a deficiency. She said that it is exceptional. I think we want to be clear that if we're new to a subject, that a lot of the research can be done independently, because we don't want this process to be a learning curve that could slow the process in a way that doesn't necessarily add to the outcome. So with that, I think that if the trustees want to direct their questions to the chancellor, and then the chancellor will continue to shepherd this process. And we also have our general counsel who will look at the final document to make sure that it's legally sufficient, because I know what we got as a report, and the side letter is a document that goes into a contract, which is the agreement. We have the staff, we have the capability and the expertise to figure all this out. So I think we'll direct our questions in terms of process. I would suggest that we, as trustees, direct our questions to the chancellor, and we can get the information fed back to us that way. And then at the next reading, as Trustee Guillen had said, we'll be in a good position to make a vote and make an analysis then.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. Trustee Oliver.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think he said something very significant. Everyone had questions. Dr. Webb had comments, and he said what he wanted, what he felt was best was to come back in January, and there isn't any rush to make a decision on this, and he can come back in January, and he would like to actually speak with Dr. Webb about this to get it finalized and have everyone's concerns addressed. So I just think he pretty much said what he wanted. So I think, I don't know, we should give him what he wants. November 18th does seem very soon to address all the concerns. I do have a question. I don't have any background in project labor agreements, but I would like to know, is there, could there be a specific amount of students that you could hire from the programs at Laney or around the Peralta District? I know you said that for a certain amount of money, there would be like one student hired, but there's not just one program at Laney. There's not just carpentry, there's construction management, electrical, environmental control, welding, machine shop, wood technology. There's 7 different programs where students could come out and go to apprenticeship programs and maybe work in these fields on these projects. So, and they would be basically competing over one job. So is there possible to actually add language for a specific amount of students from each different field? No, you can't do that? Oh.
The language we have agreed on now is that no one union can provide more than one of them. So that indirectly addresses what you want. In other words, it can't all be carpenters and it can't all be plumbers, because what the contractors will do is hire all laborers, which is not what you want to get, I don't think. And as far as the carpenters, that's not a problem. If they have the qualifications to be a carpenter, if they can find a job, they're automatically in the union. Call it a hunting license. So they're not a problem. The problem has always been getting local residents, minorities, and women has been the so-called skilled trades. Mechanical, electrical, sheet metal, those are the trades that are difficult to get people into. But I don't think we can get the level of specificity of language that some of you desire into a project labor agreement. I don't think so. I think what we want, the result that we want out of this is to get more local workers into the building trades and more graduates of your construction-related programs into the building trades. If we can do that, the other stuff we can take care of. It's the big picture that we need to look at.
Trustee Gonzalez-Yan.
So I'm a little perplexed about what the conflict is here, because I don't see a conflict of interest among the values of people on this board. I think we all have the same interest, and that is the interest that you just articulated. So I'm not really quite sure where the tone is, why the tone on this board seems to be conflictual. I think our consultant has asked for a little more time to work out some details. I'm not quite sure what the rush is. We're already into this next 5-year period. And so I'm really not quite sure what that's about. I want to clarify, I didn't say there was a deficiency in our curriculum. I think I said quite the opposite, that in fact our curriculum is pretty amazing, and that the challenge is that people come out of our programs and are not given the leg up that they could be given the actual quality of the training that we have, and that it would be helpful to have an explicit agreement with the building trades apprenticeship programs that our students would get the credit and that there could be tighter integration. Having that in writing would actually, I think, benefit all of us. So I'm not really quite sure, why are we disagreeing on that?
So just to clarify the process, this is a first reading to air out comments from the board. You've heard those comments, they've been recorded. It's going to come back to the board, and at that point, we vote it up or we vote it down, or we say that there's more discussion to be had and it hasn't met our needs. So we're not making the motion on the table right now is to approve this first reading of this document. That's it. That's the motion on the table. And I'd like to call the question on this item.
You already have a second?
I do,
Oh,
do I have a second on this?
Sure. I'll second.
Second?
Okay.
Seconded by trustee Riley. I'd like to call the question without objection. All those in favor?
All right,
Anyone opposed? Motion passes.
thank you. I'll do my best.
Thank you. The next item is, that concludes the action calendar for tonight. The next item are announcements. Trustee Brown?
May I interrupt for a moment?
Oh,
Just
sure.
a question, it's a
Without
follow-up.
objection, trustee Galassa.
It's a follow-up question. It doesn't directly pertain to the discussion that we just had, but it certainly has got me thinking about student success. The major part of student success is not just getting our students out of the classes, but we want to get them into jobs. That's the end point. So in this discussion, when I understand how few are going to be, depending on these huge sums of money and the small number of students that are entered, do we have data on how successful our students are in getting jobs and what these jobs pay for? Or are we producing masses of students when there's no work out there, or they're blocked out because of union rules or what have you? I think that would be some very important information and help me in making decisions and making stronger or weaker demands and project labor agreements and the like. So it's a comment, but can anyone say, do we have data on success, the follow-up on our, just a little bit? Yeah.
That's a great question to direct to the chancellor to be answered.
I think they're working at the state level to acquire this information. Maybe even information from other districts would be very useful in assessing ourselves the quality of our true student success. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brown?
The next regularly scheduled board meeting and board retreat, will be held on November 18th at a location to be determined and, of course, to be announced within the appropriate timeline for the notifications of public meetings. The board reminds the community to vote on November 4th. The board sends sympathy to the family and friends of longtime College of Alameda custodian Angel Olan upon his passing. The board wishes the community a happy and safe Halloween and salutes our veterans on Veterans Day. Peralta will be closed on November 11th in observance of Veterans Day. We encourage all to attend the 50th anniversary grand reception and dedication for the Barbara Lee Science and Allied Health Center on Thursday, October 30th at 6 p.m. For more information and tickets, please contact the Peralta Foundation. Mr. President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you. Without further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:22.